In the morning, a traveler stepped into the carriage alert and well-dressed, wearing a clean shirt with a clear mind and warm thoughts still lingering from home. By evening, something very different crawled out. Wrapped in stiff, frost-covered furs, hands and feet numb, movements slow and clumsy, the traveler struggled to remember his own name. And this was only the first day. Ahead lay 5 more days of travel, sometimes 10. Every night had to be survived inside the same moving, frozen box. Not for comfort, for survival. Because without sleep, without rest, without at least a little warmth, you simply would not arrive. The history of winter travel is not a story of romance. It is a story of endurance, with all its uncomfortable, bitterly cold, deeply human details. So imagine an evening 200 years ago, deep winter, somewhere on the European continent. Outside, a snowstorm howls, wind drives snow across the road, the temperature sinks far below freezing, and you are not traveling to the next village for bread. You are beginning a journey that will last days, perhaps a full week. Postponing the trip until spring is not an option. Business does not wait. Letters must be delivered. Goods must arrive. Orders must be obeyed. Family obligations must be met. And here begins something that feels almost unbelievable today. For people of the 19th century, winter was not an obstacle to long travel. It was often the best season for it. A paradox at first glance. In summer and autumn, roads turned into endless mud. Carriages sank to their axles. Horses collapsed from exhaustion. Progress slowed to a crawl. But in winter, the ground froze solid. Snow smoothed the road. Sleighs glided instead of sinking. Distances that took weeks in warm months could be crossed in half the time, sometimes even faster. Speed increased, comfort disappeared. It did not vanish entirely, it became a luxury reserved for very few. Now imagine yourself wrapped in layers of clothing, furs, blankets, sitting inside a closed carriage that jolts and shudders with every uneven patch of road. Outside, true winter cold. Inside, barely any protection. And you are not sitting like this for an hour or two. You ride all day, then all night, then another day. And you must sleep right here, in this shaking, freezing box, because stations are few and far between. A modern person might call this torture. For people of that time, it was simply life. And this is where the real story begins.
The reasons people set out on such journeys were many, but none of them were trivial. Family obligations came first: a distant wedding, a funeral, the birth of an heir. A letter arrived: your aunt is to be married. And suddenly, a choice appeared that was not really a choice at all. Stay home and offend forever, or travel for days through winter cold, rocking inside a frozen carriage. Merchants had even less freedom. For them, waiting until spring meant losing money. Goods had to move while prices were right before competitors arrived first. So they traveled through snow and wind, counting profits in their minds while quietly hoping not to lose fingers or toes along the way. Officials traveled because they were ordered to. Cold was never considered an excuse. If a command arrived, you went, whether the temperature was mild or bitterly cold. Duty did not acknowledge weather. There were also couriers, imperial messengers, postal riders. They moved at relentless speed, changing horses at stations, warming themselves only with a cup of hot tea or their own breath inside their gloves. They slept in fragments, always half awake, because time mattered more than comfort. And then there were the romantics. Some travelers chose winter deliberately. They wrote about snow-covered landscapes, frost-covered trees, the vast silence of frozen rivers. Their journals speak of beauty, but between the lines, another truth appears. Fingers too stiff to hold a pen, ink frozen solid in the inkwell, words written quickly before cold stole movement again. There were lovers, too, young men who crossed hundreds of miles in deep winter just to spend a few days near the person they loved. Reckless, perhaps, but history is often shaped by such recklessness. And so, here you stand, at the beginning of the road. Early winter morning, still dark, the air cuts the lungs with every breath. The driver moves around the horses, his beard coated in frost, his breath rising in thick clouds. He helps you climb inside the carriage. The door closes, and suddenly you understand. This is your bedroom for the next day, perhaps longer. Cold, shaking, unforgiving. And this is where the true story of sleeping on the road begins.
At first, the carriage feels merely uncomfortable. The cold is present but distant, something you believe you could manage. You adjust your coat, pull the furs tighter, tuck your hands beneath layers of wool, and tell yourself that the body will adapt. The road disagrees. Every wheel strikes frozen ground with a dull, relentless force. The carriage sways, rocks, and jolts, never settling into a rhythm long enough for the body to relax. Wood creaks, leather straps groan. Somewhere beneath the floor, iron complains softly with each uneven stretch of road. There is no true silence here, only movement. The air inside grows heavy and stale, yet opening a window is unthinkable. Outside waits a cold so sharp it feels alive. A single crack is enough to invite it in, so the carriage remains sealed, a box that traps breath, damp wool, and the faint smell of horses and oil. Hours pass. The body begins to lose its sense of time. Daylight fades into a pale, colorless dusk, then into full darkness. A lantern is lit, its weak flame trembling with every jolt. Shadows stretch and collapse along the walls, never staying still long enough to be trusted. Sleep should come now. The body demands it. But sleep in a carriage is not a gentle thing. It arrives suddenly, without permission, then vanishes just as quickly. The head drops forward, the neck protests. A sharp jolt snaps the eyes open again. Rest comes in fragments, moments stolen between impacts. Cold creeps closer. It begins in the feet, then the hands. Fingers stiffen, losing their shape. Toes burn, then go numb. The traveler shifts position constantly, searching for warmth that does not exist. And slowly, an understanding forms. This journey will not be about comfort. It will be about learning how to sleep in pieces, how to rest without surrendering fully, how to survive the night without fighting it. This is not yet skill. It is instinct. And instinct is only the beginning.
By midnight, the body stops asking for comfort. It begins asking only for survival. The cold no longer feels sharp. It feels patient. It waits. It seeps through wool and fur, settles into joints, presses against the spine. You shift again, then again, but every position grows cold after a few minutes. Warmth never stays. Someone across from you finally gives in and sleeps. Their head tilts to the side, mouth slightly open, breath slow and uneven. With every jolt of the road, their body sways like a pendulum. They look peaceful, But you know better. This is not rest. It is exhaustion winning by force. You try to follow. You close your eyes and let the motion carry you. For a moment, it almost works. The rocking feels distant, like waves beneath a boat. Muscles loosen, thoughts blur. Then the wheel hits a frozen rut. The carriage jumps, your teeth snap together, pain shoots through your neck. Sleep shatters instantly, leaving behind only frustration and cold. This becomes the pattern of the night. Sleep arrives in seconds, shallow, fragile, and breaks just as quickly, minutes at a time, never more. Each fragment leaves you heavier, slower, less aware of your own body. At some point, the mind adapts. You stop fighting the cold, stop waiting for warmth. Instead, you curl inward, protecting what matters most. Hands tucked beneath your coat, chin pressed into your chest, shoulders raised slightly, like armor. Breathing becomes measured, slow, careful. The lantern flickers low. Shadows cling to the corners of the carriage. Outside, the world is nothing but darkness and the steady crunch of wheels over frozen ground. This is not sleep as it exists at home. This is something older, a half-sleep, a watchful rest, the kind learned by soldiers, travelers, and people who cannot afford to let their guard down, even in the dark. By now, you understand something important. To sleep in a frozen carriage is not to escape the night, it is to endure it. And endurance, once learned, changes you.
Cold has a way of turning strangers into companions. In the frozen stillness of the carriage, distance slowly disappears. Shoulders brush, knees touch by accident and are not pulled away. No one apologizes. Warmth, even borrowed warmth, becomes too valuable for pride. Someone produces a blanket, heavy, coarse, smelling faintly of smoke and horse. It is passed along without ceremony, draped across laps, shared by 3, maybe 4 people at once. No one asks whose it is. Ownership loses meaning in the cold. Breath becomes visible inside the carriage, pale clouds rising and fading in the dim light. Each exhale feels precious, as if warmth itself might run out if wasted too quickly. Conversations die down, replaced by the soft rhythm of breathing and the creak of leather straps. A child begins to shiver, not loudly, just enough for the sound to carry. A woman shifts closer, pulling the child against her side. A man across from them adjusts his coat, offering an edge of thick wool. The child relaxes slowly, trembling, easing into stillness. No words are spoken, none are needed. This is how people sleep here, not alone, but together, not comfortably, but deliberately. You become aware of every nearby body, the rise and fall of chests, the occasional sharp inhale when cold air slips beneath a collar, the subtle movements of people trying not to disturb one another. Someone snores softly, someone mutters in their sleep, words blurred beyond meaning. The sounds blend into the night, neither comforting nor disturbing, simply present. Outside, the road stretches endlessly through darkness. Snow crunches beneath wheels. The horses snort, steam rising from their nostrils, just as human breath does inside. You close your eyes again. This time, sleep does not fully come, but something close enough does.
a state where time loosens its grip, where minutes slide past unnoticed, where cold remains, but fear does not. In this shared endurance, there is a strange kind of peace. Not the peace of warmth, not the peace of safety, but the quiet understanding that for this night at least, no one is facing the cold alone.
Sleep never fully belongs to the frozen carriage. It comes in fragments, thin, fragile layers that break at the slightest disturbance. A sudden jolt of the wheels, a change in the rhythm of the horses, a sharp gust of wind forcing its way through a hidden crack. Your eyes open without panic, just awareness. Someone is always awake. Not officially, not by agreement, it simply happens. One traveler stares into the dark, counting breaths. Another shifts position, checking stiff legs, flexing fingers to make sure they still respond. Someone else listens to the outside world, alert for sounds that do not belong. This quiet vigilance is instinctive. In the cold, sleep too deeply, and you risk drifting somewhere you cannot return from. A man near the door clears his throat softly and pulls his scarf higher over his mouth. Frost has formed along the edge of the fabric, tiny crystals catching what little light slips through the carriage seams. From outside comes the low voice of the driver, barely audible above the wind, a murmur to the horses, a whistle, short and familiar. The sound anchors everyone inside. If the driver is still talking, still moving, then the road continues. You shift your feet, careful not to wake the others. The warmth you borrowed earlier is fading, but you resist the urge to pull the blanket tighter. Someone else needs it just as much. Time loses shape here. Night stretches, contracts, stretches again. You cannot tell how long you've been drifting, 10 minutes or an hour. The darkness inside the carriage is complete now, broken only by the faint glow of snow reflecting moonlight through the smallest gap. At some point, someone whispers, "Station soon." It is not a question, it is hope. The word moves through the carriage like warmth itself. Bodies stir, spines straighten slightly, hands adjust coats, scarves, gloves. Even the cold seems to loosen its grip, as if it knows relief is coming. You close your eyes once more, not to sleep deeply, but to rest just enough. Enough to endure, enough to arrive. Because in the frozen world of the night road, rest is not about comfort. It is about staying present until morning finds you. The station appears before you really realize it. At first, it is only a change in the darkness, a softer edge, a flicker where the night should be solid. Then a window, then another. Small yellow squares trembling in the distance like something imagined rather than real. No one speaks. The carriage slows. The rhythm that carried you through the night loosens its grip. When it finally stops, silence feels heavier than motion ever did. The door opens. Cold rushes in first, sharp and alive, as if reminding you who has been in charge all along. Someone steps down into the snow. Boots crunch. A voice calls out, routine and tired. You follow. Standing still hurts more than the ride. Blood returns to numb feet in painful waves. Fingers burn as they wake, but you welcome it. Pain means feeling. Feeling means you made it. Inside the station, heat does not embrace, it confronts. Heat presses against your face, thick and almost overwhelming. The air smells of smoke, damp wool, boiled grain. The stove glows red, breathing slowly like a living thing. People gather around it without speaking, hands extended, coats still on, afraid to undress too quickly. Steam rises from scarves and sleeves. Someone laughs quietly, surprised by the sound of their own voice. Another sinks onto a bench and closes their eyes, not sleeping, just letting the stillness exist. Tea appears, dark, strong, scalding. You hold the cup carefully, knowing that if you spill it, there will be nothing else like it for hours. The first sip travels downward like a small miracle, spreading heat where cold has been nesting all night. For a moment, no one is in a hurry. This pause is not luxury, it is survival. Outside, horses are already being changed. Harnesses creak. Snow continues to fall, indifferent. The road has not softened, it is only waiting. Soon, you will have to leave this room, pull your coat tighter again, step back into the frozen carriage, and repeat everything you have just endured. But for now, the night is behind you, and this brief, fragile warmth is enough to carry you forward.
Warmth fades faster than you expect. It doesn't disappear all at once. It thins like a dream unraveling the moment you open your eyes. The stove still glows behind you. The room still hums with quiet life, but the road is already calling. No one says it out loud, yet everyone understands it's time. Coats go back on, scarves are retied tighter than before. Gloves, still slightly damp from melted frost, are pulled onto hands that already know what waits outside. The door opens again, and winter steps forward without hesitation. The cold feels sharper now, not because it grew stronger, but because your body remembers warmth. Every breath bites deeper. The snow creaks underfoot as if protesting your return. The carriage stands exactly where you left it, dark, stiff, patient. Climbing inside feels different this time. You know what it is now. No illusions remain. The seat is hard. The air inside is colder than the night air was, the wood still holding on to hours of frost. You settle in more carefully, arranging layers with practiced movements. Nothing is wasted now. Every fold, every inch of fur matters. The door closes. Darkness returns, but it no longer surprises you. As the carriage starts moving again, the rhythm resumes, slower, heavier, familiar. Your body adjusts faster this time. Muscles find their places, breathing steadies. The cold is still there, but it no longer feels like an enemy. It feels like a condition. You understand something now that you didn't before the first night. This journey is not about endurance alone. It is about acceptance. You don't fight the cold anymore. You make space for it. And somewhere between the sway of the carriage and the steady beat of the road, the mind grows quieter. Thoughts simplify. Worries shrink to the size of the next station, the next cup of tea, the next hour survived. Sleep does not come easily, but it comes, in fragments, in shallow waves, in moments where the body loosens just enough to rest without surrendering control. You wake often, but each time it's easier to drift back. The road continues. Night stretches long and empty, yet no longer endless. You have learned its shape, learned its rules. And for the first time, you are no longer merely enduring the journey. You are part of it.
At some point, time stops behaving like time. It doesn't break or vanish. It simply loosens its grip. Minutes stretch, Hours blur, and the road becomes a single, continuous motion without edges or markers. This is not sleep, and yet it isn't wakefulness either. Your eyes are closed, but the world doesn't disappear. You still feel the sway of the carriage, the subtle pull of cold along your boots, the distant rhythm of hooves striking frozen ground. Sounds arrive softened, as if wrapped in cloth. Thoughts slow. They no longer line up into sentences. Instead, they drift. Fragments of memory, half-formed images, moments from home that surface without invitation and fade just as quickly. Faces, voices, the warmth of a room you once knew. Then, nothing. For a while, you are nowhere. Your body remains tense in small, careful ways. Fingers curl around fur. Shoulders stay raised, guarding warmth. Somewhere inside, a quiet alertness remains, the instinct that knows full sleep here would be dangerous. This is the art of the road, to rest without letting go. You wake without realizing you were asleep. A jolt, a sharper turn, the wind finding a new crack in the carriage wall. The cold checks in again, reminding you where you are. You adjust, shift your legs, breathe into your scarf, close your eyes once more, and drift back. Each return to this half-sleep becomes easier. The mind learns the rhythm, the body learns the limits. Fear fades, replaced by something steadier, familiarity. Outside, the world is reduced to essentials: darkness, snow, movement. Inside, life contracts to the same: breath, warmth, rest. Nothing else matters. This state is strange, almost peaceful, not because it is comfortable, but because resistance has ended. You are no longer waiting for the night to be over. You are simply moving through it. And somewhere in this suspended place, between waking and sleeping, between cold and warmth, you understand something deeply human. People didn't survive these journeys because they were stronger than we are today. They survived because they learned how to yield without breaking. The road teaches that lesson quietly. It doesn't rush, it doesn't explain, it simply carries you forward.
Before dawn, the cold feels different. It is no longer sharp or curious. It is tired. The night has spent itself, and you feel it in the way the air settles, in the slower rhythm of the carriage, in the silence that grows heavier rather than louder. Even the horses seem to move with less urgency now, their breath steady, measured, resigned. You open your eyes. Darkness still surrounds you, but it is thinner than before, no longer absolute. Somewhere beyond the carriage walls, the sky is beginning to change, not to light, not yet, but to possibility. This hour is the hardest. Your body wants to stop. Muscles ache with a deep, dull insistence. The warmth you've guarded so carefully feels fragile, as if it could vanish with one careless movement. Every instinct whispers that rest should be complete now. But the road doesn't stop for instinct. You shift again, slower this time. Everything is deliberate. Hands adjust fur. Legs reposition inside the narrow space you've claimed as your own. You breathe shallowly, conserving heat, conserving effort. Outside, the snow reflects the faintest hint of gray. It is barely visible, but it changes everything. Dawn is not light, it is permission. Permission to endure just a little longer. Permission to believe that the night has limits, that this journey too will end. People on these roads learn to recognize this moment, not by sight,
but by feeling. The way exhaustion softened into something almost gentle. The way fear loosened its grip. You are still cold, still cramped, still far from comfort. But you are no longer alone with the dark. Soon there will be a station, a fire, a place where the carriage will stop moving and your body can finally rest without vigilance. Until then, you hold on, not tightly, not desperately, just enough. This was how nights ended 200 years ago, not with relief, but with quiet acceptance. And in that acceptance, people found the strength to arrive.
The carriage stops without ceremony. No announcement, no relief in sound, just the absence of motion, so sudden that your body sways forward, confused by stillness. For a moment it feels wrong, as if the world has made a mistake. Then the door opens. Warmth spills out. Not the gentle warmth of a home, but a heavy, working heat. Thick air, alive with smoke and steam, presses against your face. The smell reaches you first. Wet wool, wood ash, boiled grain, something faintly sour and human. You step inside. The station is already full. People lie where they can, on benches, on the floor, near the stove, far from it, anywhere that offers a few hours without movement. No one asks who you are. No one needs to. Here, everyone understands the same language. You remove only what you must. Too much warmth too quickly can be dangerous. Coats stay on. Boots loosen but remain close. Hands stretch toward the fire, not touching, just close enough to feel alive again. The stove crackles, patient and reliable. Its sound is unlike the carriage, steady, grounded, unmoving. Your body reacts before your thoughts do. Muscles soften, shoulders drop. Sleep arrives quietly, not as surrender, but as permission. You lie down fully for the first time in days. The floor is hard, the bench narrow, but neither moves beneath you. That alone feels like luxury. Around you, others drift away as well. Someone coughs, someone turns over, someone murmurs a name, and then falls silent again. This sleep is different. It is deeper, heavier, unbroken. It does not erase the road. It repairs you just enough to return to it. Outside, horses are already being prepared. The journey never truly stops. It only pauses long enough to let people survive it. And when you wake, hours later, the cold will still be waiting, but so will you. Waking comes slowly, not because you are rested, but because your body hesitates to believe it is safe to move. For a few quiet seconds, you lie still, listening. No wheels, no creaking wood, only voices, distant and muted, and the steady breathing of people around you. The stove has burned down to embers. The room is cooler now, but the cold feels different here, tamed, held at bay by walls and habit. You sit up carefully, muscles protest, stiff and unwilling, as if reminding you that rest was brief and conditional. Around you, others wake the same way. No one rushes. Everyone knows what comes next. Boots are pulled on, scarves wrapped again, coats lifted heavier than before, as if they absorbed the night itself. Hands linger near the stove one last time, stealing a final trace of warmth. Outside, dawn has fully arrived. The sky is pale and empty, the kind of light that shows everything without softening it. Snow squeaks underfoot. Horses stamp, restless, already tied to the next stretch of road. Breath rises in thick clouds again, familiar and unavoidable.
The carriage waits. It looks smaller now, less mysterious. You know it too well. You know where the cold hides, where the draft slips in, how the seat will press against your back. There are no illusions left. You climb inside. The door closes, cutting off the station's warmth like a memory you are not meant to keep. Darkness returns, thinner than before, but just as real. The carriage shifts, then moves. The road resumes. What changes is not the cold or the discomfort or the distance still ahead. What changes is you. The night has taught your body its limits, and the station has reminded it why endurance matters. You no longer hope for comfort. You plan for survival. And that, in the world of winter travel, is enough to keep going.
After the second night, time begins to lose its edges. Days no longer start or end clearly. Morning is not light, it is merely less darkness. Night is not a moment, it is a condition. Inside the carriage, the world shrinks to a narrow, swaying space where hours blur into each other. You stop counting them. Instead, you count stops. Horses changed, cups of tea swallowed too quickly, short moments when your feet touch the ground and remind you that you still exist beyond fur and wood. The body adapts in quiet ways. Cold still hurts, but it no longer surprises. Muscles learn which aches can be ignored and which cannot. You discover a position that almost works, a way of breathing that wastes less warmth. Sleep comes in fragments, but the fragments grow deeper, more efficient. Thoughts slow. Not because you are tired, but because there's nothing left to rush toward. The road sets the rhythm now. You follow it. Outside the carriage, landscapes pass without demanding attention. Forest, field, another forest. Snow erases distinctions. Villages appear and vanish like thoughts you don't hold on to long enough to remember. Inside, silence becomes familiar. People speak less. When they do, it is practical. A warning about cold, a question about the next station. Words become tools, not decoration. And somewhere in this long, repetitive movement, something unexpected happens. You begin to feel calm. Not comfortable, not happy, but steady. The kind of steadiness that comes when the mind stops fighting what cannot be changed, when expectations fall away, and all that remains is the present moment, cold, movement, breath. This was the hidden skill of winter travel. Not strength, not bravery, acceptance. Those who mastered it survived the road. Those who didn't exhausted themselves long before the journey ended. You rest when you can. You endure when you must. You let the carriage carry you instead of resisting every mile. Time dissolves, and in its place, something simpler takes shape.
There comes a moment on the winter road when the cold stops feeling like an enemy. It does not retreat, it does not grow weaker, it simply becomes familiar. Your body no longer reacts sharply to the chill. Movements slow, not from stiffness, but from economy. You stop adjusting your coat as often. You stop checking your hands every few minutes. The fight quiets down. And that is when the danger begins. Experienced travelers feared this stage more than the first brutal hours. Sharp cold keeps you alert. Pain reminds you to move, to protect yourself, to stay awake. But this softer cold, this muted, almost gentle numbness invites surrender. You feel tired,
Deeply and honestly tired, not the kind of exhaustion that aches, but the kind that whispers, just rest a little longer. Just don't move. Just let things be. The carriage rocks steadily. The sound becomes soothing. The darkness no longer presses. It cradles. People have made mistakes here. They loosened their grip on vigilance, let their heads fall too deeply into fur, forgot to move their feet, forgot to wake themselves from drifting too far. Those who knew the road watched for this change in themselves and others, a quiet nudge, a forced stretch, a whispered word, not kindness, necessity. You shift again, even though you don't want to. Roll your shoulders, flex your fingers inside your gloves. The movement feels unnecessary, even unpleasant, but you do it anyway. Because survival on this road is not about feeling strong, it is about staying present. The winter journey does not announce its dangers loudly. It offers comfort at the wrong moments and asks discipline when none is left. And those who arrive at the end are not the ones who fought the hardest, but the ones who noticed when it became too easy to stop fighting.
No one wrote them down. There were no manuals for winter travel, no official instructions pinned to the inside of a carriage. And yet, everyone who survived the long roads seemed to know the same rules. They were passed quietly, from driver to driver, from traveler to traveler, learned once, remembered for life. The first rule was simple: never stay still for too long. Even the smallest movement mattered. Toes wiggled inside boots, fingers pressed together inside gloves. A shoulder rolled, a knee shifted. These movements looked meaningless, almost childish, but they kept blood moving, kept the body awake enough to resist the cold's invitation. The second rule was about attention. You listened to yourself constantly, not anxiously, but honestly. Were your hands still clumsy? Good. Pain meant circulation. Numbness without discomfort was a warning, a dangerous calm. People learned to recognize that moment and act against it, even when every instinct begged them not to. The third rule concerned sleep. You never allowed yourself to disappear into it completely. Sleep came in fragments, 20 minutes, maybe 40. Then you woke, checked your body, shifted position, breathed deeply, and only then allowed yourself to drift again. It was not rest as we understand it today. It was maintenance. And finally, there was the rule no one liked to admit out loud. You did not travel alone if you could help it. Another person meant another pair of eyes, another awareness. Someone to notice when your breathing slowed too much, when your head drooped too deeply, when you stopped responding. Cold erased pride quickly. In the carriage, survival mattered more than dignity. These rules were not heroic. They were not dramatic. They did not promise comfort or ease, but they worked. They turned an impossible journey into a survivable one. They kept people alive long enough to reach the next station, the next fire, the next night. And in the silence of the moving carriage, following these small rules felt like holding on to a thin but unbreakable thread. By the time the journey nears its end, something inside you has shifted. Not dramatically, not in a way that demands words. It's quieter than that. Your body knows the road now. It no longer wastes energy on panic or resistance. Movements are economical, gestures smaller. Even pain feels different, familiar, measured, almost expected. You know which discomforts will pass and which must be answered immediately. But the deeper change is not in the body. It is in the mind. Thoughts have grown shorter, simpler. You no longer rehearse conversations, replay worries, or imagine distant futures. The road has trimmed your inner world down to what matters right now,
warmth, breath, the next stop. And strangely, this simplicity feels like relief. Many travelers noticed this only afterward, when the journey was nearly over. They would realize they hadn't thought about home in hours, not because they didn't care, but because the present moment had claimed all available attention. The carriage becomes a kind of teacher. It strips life down to essentials and asks a single question: what do you actually need? Not comfort, not certainty, just enough strength to keep going. People often wrote that by the final days of a winter journey, they felt calmer than they had at the beginning, less anxious, less scattered. The road had worn away unnecessary thoughts, the way snow smooths sharp edges. Even conversation changed. Words were fewer, but more honest. A nod, a shared glance, a quiet understanding that everyone inside the carriage was enduring the same thing. No explanations needed. This was not happiness, but it was clarity. And clarity on a winter road was its own kind of warmth.
You feel it before you see it. The carriage slows in a way that is different from a station stop, less routine, more deliberate. The rhythm that has carried you for days begins to loosen, stretch, and finally fall apart. Wheels grind, horses shift, voices sound closer now, clearer. The road is ending. When the door opens, the cold rushes in one last time, sharp, honest, unmistakable. But this time it does not frighten you. It feels like a formality, a final signature at the bottom of a long document. You step down. Your legs tremble, not from weakness, but from remembering how to stand without movement beneath you. The ground is solid. It does not sway. It does not argue. For a moment, you simply remain there, letting your body understand that it no longer needs to adjust. Around you, others do the same. No one rushes forward. Arrival is not a leap. It is a careful unfolding. Coats are loosened, scarves lowered. People look around as if seeing the world again after a long absence. The carriage stands behind you now, quiet and unremarkable. From the outside, it looks almost harmless. Ordinary wood, iron, worn leather. Nothing about it reveals what it demanded from those inside. And yet, you know what it took to sleep there, to stay awake when it would have been easier not to listen to your body and distrust it at the same time. The road releases you, but it does not disappear. It stays in your posture, in the way you notice warmth, in how deeply you inhale when you finally step indoors, in how carefully you sit, lie down, rest. That night, when you sleep in a real bed, the stillness feels unreal. Your body waits for motion that never comes. The silence presses gently, unfamiliar, but welcome. You have arrived, but the journey has already changed you.
Long after the journey ends, the road stays with you. Not as pain, not as fear, but as a quiet measure by which everything else is judged. You notice it first in small things. A warm room feels warmer than before. A blanket feels heavier, more generous. Even silence has weight now. Not empty, but full. You lie still and listen, and nothing moves beneath you. No sway, no rhythm, just rest. For a while, your body does not trust it. You wake in the night expecting motion. You shift, instinctively checking your hands, your feet, the edge of the blanket. Only then do you remember, the road is over. You are safe. Many travelers wrote about this feeling, how after days or weeks of winter travel,
Comfort no longer felt ordinary. It felt earned. They spoke differently, too. Less complaining, fewer demands. Not because life became easier, but because perspective had changed. When you have slept in a frozen carriage, warmth stops being background noise. It becomes something you notice, something you respect. Even time feels altered. People who endured long winter journeys were slower afterward. Not dull, deliberate. They walked more carefully. They listened longer. They understood that not everything could be rushed without cost. The road taught them that. It taught patience without speeches, endurance without pride, gratitude without drama. And perhaps that is why these journeys stayed alive in memory long after the discomfort faded. They were not remembered as suffering alone, but as moments when life became very simple and very clear. Warmth, rest, arrival. Everything else fell away.
With time, the memory of cold softens, not because it was small, but because it no longer needs to prove itself. What remains is not the ache in the bones or the stiffness of frozen fingers, but a quieter understanding, a new measure by which comfort is felt. After such a road, comfort is no longer excess, it is balance. A chair does not need to be soft to feel kind. A meal does not need to be rich to feel complete. A night does not need silence to feel restful, only safety. People who had slept in frozen carriages carried this measure with them for years. They rarely spoke about it directly, but it appeared in habits, in how they prepared for journeys, in how they welcomed guests, in how quickly they noticed when someone else was cold or tired. They knew how thin the line was between endurance and collapse, between rest and exhaustion, between enough and too little. Winter travel taught them something modern life often forgets. Comfort is not the absence of hardship, but the presence of care. Care for the body, care for limits, care for timing. It also taught restraint. When you have lived with very little warmth, you stop wasting it. When you have slept in motion, you stop taking stillness for granted. When you have learned to rest in fragments, you learn to value every full hour of sleep as something precious. This is why these journeys stayed in memory, not as heroic tales, not as warnings, but as quiet lessons. The road stripped life down to essentials and then returned it slowly with meaning restored.
The road ends the way it always did, not with celebration, not with relief loud enough to hear, but with stillness. The carriage no longer moves, the night no longer presses, the cold no longer needs to be negotiated. All the things that once demanded constant attention quietly step aside. What remains is simple. A warm room, a steady floor, a body allowed to rest without vigilance. 200 years ago, people did not speak of these journeys as stories meant to impress. They spoke of them as experiences that changed how one lived afterward, how one slept, how one valued warmth, time, and quiet. They learned that rest is not something to rush into. It must be prepared for, protected, earned through attention. They learned that sleep is not guaranteed by comfort alone, but by safety, by rhythm, by trust in the moment. And perhaps most importantly, they learned that human endurance is not loud. It is patient, it is observant, it adapts without complaint. The frozen carriage, so harsh and unforgiving, was also a teacher. It showed what truly matters when everything else falls away.
And when people finally lay down in real beds, in real homes, they carried that lesson with them. Tonight, you do not need to endure anything. You are not counting stations. You are not guarding warmth. You are not sleeping in fragments. But if you listen carefully, somewhere beneath the quiet, you may feel it, a deeper appreciation for the stillness around you, a calm that comes from knowing how different it once was. The road has ended. You have arrived. And now, like so many travelers before you, you are allowed to sleep, fully, deeply, without fear. Good night.